Greetings to all. I, Jane Sapiasa, together with my group mates Miss Ella Milanias and Miss Joanne Bernales, are going to discuss about the topic motivation. So in this discussion, we will be focusing on the meaning and types of motivation, also with knowing the role of extrinsic motivation in the development of intrinsic motivation. So for our learning objectives, at the end of the lesson, you are able to first define motivation. Second, identify the types of motivation, discuss the characteristics of each type of motivation, and justify the rule of extrinsic motivation in view of the development of intrinsic motivation. Now, what for you is motivation and what is your motivation? So I know every one of us here are too familiar with this term, right? So the word motivation was derived from the word motive, which means needs, desires, wants, or drives within the individuals. So it is the process that initiates, guides, and maintains goal-oriented behaviors. So in other words, motivation is the driving force within ourselves that enable us to maintain our goals and other ideal behaviors. But mind you, motivation also can come or will take place because of the factors in our environment. So it involves the biological, emotional, social, and cognitive forces that activate behavior. So it is the driving force behind human actions. So motivation doesn't just refer to the factors that activate behaviors. It also involves the factors that direct and maintain these goal-oriented actions. As a result, we often have to infer the reasons why people do the things that they do based on observable behaviors. Yes, for though we have the right mindset, the techniques or the plans, but without the motivation to do so, so it's useless. So motivation is vital. So for me, I believe that the right mindset will give you direction. The methodologies or the techniques that you will use will sustain you, and the motivation will be the reason or the driving force for you to succeed in everything that you wanted to do, may it be in learning or whatsoever. So that is the definition of motivation. So as we dig deeper into this topic, let us all hear the next discussion about the types of motivation by Miss Lanias.
Good day, everyone. I am Elami C. Lanyas, and I am the second reporter of Group 9, which talks about with the topic which talks about motivation and types of motivation. So, before I gonna discuss my part, I wanna ask, how motivated are you today? So, by either working, playing, or playing sports, studying, or anything else that requires focus and effort, motivation has a huge impact on how well we perform. So, motivation is very essential in everything we do. So, when it comes to motivation, there are two main types of motivation: the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So, to start with, I wanna discuss the first type, which is the intrinsic motivation. So, before anything else, what comes in your mind if you hear the word intrinsic? So, that's right. If we say intrinsic, it is within the person or within itself. So, intrinsic motivation is when the source of motivation is from within a person, herself, himself, or the activity itself. It is shown in the enjoyment of the activity itself and the inner conviction of the learner that such things are the right things to do in order to realize a personal goal or a life dream. So, do you understand intrinsic motivation? So, intrinsic motivation, it talks about how the person or the individual perform not thinking about what others may reward them or what others give them for that, for the for the effort or the action you take. Intrinsic motivation drives each person from within individual values and preferences that make doing a particular task more meaningful. This motivation does not need to have compensation at the end of a performed activity. So, intrinsic motivation does not need any reward or any compensation after doing any performed task or activity. So, for example, solving a word puzzle because you find the challenge fun and exciting. So, that's intrinsic motivation. Decades of various psychological researches have shown that intrinsic motivation is strongly linked to increased engagement, performance, and overall happiness. Since intrinsic motivation is help a individual or a person do the activity because they find it enjoyable or satisfying. It increase engagement, performance, and happiness. So there are types of intrinsic motivators such as learning, love, curiosity, belonging, autonomy, and mastery. So that's are the types of intrinsic motivators. So the next type of motivation, the second type of motivation is extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is when a person is motivated by someone or something outside him or her. A person is motivated to perform or do the task or a behavior or engage in an activity because they want to earn a reward or avoid punishment. So they will engage in the activity not because they find it enjoyable or they are not they because they enjoy it not enjoy it or they find it satisfying, but because they expect to get something in return. Like, for example, putting together a puzzle because you want to win a prize. So, you you do the puzzle because not because you find it challenging or fun, but because you expect that after you after you complete the puzzle, you have a prize. So, like the intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation has also motivators such as points, money, fear of punishments, badges, rewards, competition, and food. Intrinsic motivation yields more advantages than extrinsic motivation. Also, intrinsic motivation is more beneficial than extrinsic motivation since intrinsic motivation helps develop the person's well-being, the willingness and the the willingness and the overall happiness of the individual in doing the activity rather than expecting any reward or any points or compensation in return. But extrinsic motivation also help students who does not like the activity at all, but it requires him to learn. That's why extrinsic motivation is also play a role in an students. Like example, a student does not want to learn the topic because he does not like it, but it is the topic is really important to know or to understand. That's why the teacher or the facilitator use extensive motivation to help the students topic and learn the topic and understand it. But 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 afterwards the teacher or the facilitator needs to give the student a reward or a compensation after engaging or performing or understanding the lesson. So, research indicates that intrinsic motivation is preferable because of its focus on learning and understanding by Murphy 2004. So, four. So, here are example 1 and 2. So, you need to um, answer what type of motivation does this two example does. So first example, Samantha is a 5th grade pupil and excels academically in class. He carries out his tasks just because he likes and enjoys what she's doing. So in this example, what type of motivation does this show? So yes, it is intrinsic motivation since Samantha does his tasks because he likes and enjoys it when she is doing the task. So, next example, Donnie is a 6th grade pupil and excels academically in his class. He is motivated to obtain high grade that every day he studies his lesson. Identify what type of motivation that it shows. So, Donnie motivated because of the high grade that um, every lessons he may achieve. So what type of motivation does it show? So that's right. It is extrinsic motivation since Donnie is expecting high grade from the lessons rather than the learning he may obtain in every lesson or every topic in the class. So that's all for my part, the types of motivation. Hope you understand and um, learn something from my part, the types of motivation, the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So I will give the floor to the next reporter, Ms. Bernales. So that's all for my part. Thank you for listening.
Rule of extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is our desire to perform a task because of incentives or rewards. So because of that reward that triggers you to do a certain task, it develops your motivation from within and you become intrinsically motivated in the process. So in short, ang rule ng extrinsic motivation is to bring in intrinsic motivation, where the unmotivated child becomes motivated, both extrinsic and intrinsic, because the child has given a reward, praise, or encouragement from others. Mauna na siya willingness to do a certain task, and it will develop her motivation from within, and that's so-called intrinsic motivation. For example, if ang teacher would do a Google Meet and then mo reward siya plus points for the students nga mo attend, and of course as a student you would fully motivated because of the reward given, which is ang plus points. So out from that extrinsic motivation, which is the reward from the teacher, nakuha sa nimo ang intrinsic motivation kay willing naman ka mo attend, and that's the rule of extrinsic motivation to develop or bring in your intrinsic motivation.